My first learning is on EALD children, which is connected to Standard 1.3. Instead of viewing them as not having adequate proficiency in English, I learned that they are individuals with different educational backgrounds. According to both David's lecture and Akara, a child with EALD background may have the content knowledge equivalent to their peers in Australia and learn English as a foreign language, or he or she may already have good academic language skills in English but struggles with the social registers of it. Because of these different possibilities of those children, I believe that I need to be more careful when making assumptions on what they know and what they don't, and how they learn the best. By reflecting on my past experiences, I found that when I encountered children with EALD background, I did well in recognizing their abilities or strengths if their home language is Chinese. For example, a 2-year-old boy who was new to the center where I was on the placement was identifying color by talking in Chinese when playing with the colored pencils. I told the other staff this observation, and they recorded it by writing out an anecdote. However, I think after this course, I have become more able to support and scaffold children with EALD background, even though it's not a Chinese one. Even though I cannot predict the children that I'm going to teach, I'm more prepared because now I know what resources are available to me to better my teaching. These include the section of EALD teacher resources on Australian curriculum, where I find it has annotated descriptors not only for English learning but also for math, science, and history. Resources like the one from Victoria State's Department of Education also provides useful information. Another thing that I learned is to look at children in a strength-based perspective instead of a deficit-based one, which has been mentioned several times in the lectures. This is also connected to Standard 1.3. In the lecture, the case study of the child called Hannah struck me deeply because in my primary school placement, I also had a girl who was passionate about drawing and seemed not so interested in classroom learning tasks. She is from a Korean family background, and language seemed to be the reason why she was not participating fully. During the placement, even though I was aware that I should modify the lesson for her, I did not realize that I could build on her interest in drawing characters to teach her both English language and narrative in the English literature strand. Now through the case study, I got more understanding in terms of how to build on children's strength and expand their learning in meaningful ways. The third important learning is on how to include Aboriginal culture in my teaching, which is connected to Standard 1.4 and 2.4, both for teaching contents that involve Aboriginal culture and teaching children with Aboriginal backgrounds. I have learned and now believe that there is no single view on what Aboriginal culture is. Karina shared in her talk that one way of living in her Aboriginal tribe doesn't necessarily apply in another one, because there are so many different learning and life experiences of different Aboriginal areas. The teachers should not oversimplify Aboriginal culture by treating it as a single one. Formerly, my understanding of Aboriginal culture and how to teach it was more narrow and limited. I thought it was about Aboriginal art, mainly graphic symbols and music, or about Aboriginal stories, mainly dreaming stories. After this course, I now have reached the understanding that in reality, when explicitly using and teaching about Aboriginal culture in general, it is important to inform children that this is probably just one form of Aboriginal culture, not all Aboriginal cultures are the same. Also, I learned from the Settler Grammar article that teachers should be conscious and critical of how Aboriginal culture is presented in the classroom, trying to avoid using a settler colonial discourse, which probably portray it as primitive, marginal, and problematic. Instead, we as teachers should be aware that Indigenous culture was shaped by social and political events, and Aboriginal cultures have the same elements of kinship, family, relationship, learning from nature, and stories passed down by former generations. These are the three main learning points, and I'm apparently still on my way of learning how to be sensitive to the cultural context of our children.